Ndamba gripped the rope tightly, his hands trembling. Maybe it was better this way, better to end it himself than to let Pa Ngola have the last laugh. At least then, his death would be his own choice, not the satisfaction of another man's revenge. Ndamba wept like a child. How could he have done this? How could he have made such a reckless mistake, one that could cost him his very life? He had impregnated the daughter of the most feared man in the village. Pa Ngola. The name alone sent shivers down spines. Everyone knew Pa Ngola would not take this lightly. And now, Ndamba's fate hung by a thread. Pa Ngola was the most feared man in the village, and even in the villages beyond. His name alone sent chills down spines. They said his word never fell to the ground. If Pa Ngola said you would fall sick, sickness would surely find you. If he warned that a ring would not touch your foot, it would vanish before it did. No one dared cross him. To offend Pa Ngola was to invite a curse no one could undo. Pa Ngola was not the richest man in the village, but neither was he the poorest. Still, there was something about him that set him apart, something that made people tremble in his presence. He walked barefoot most of the time, the dust of the village clinging to his feet like loyal servants. On Sundays, he went to the same small church as everyone else, sat quietly at the back, and said little. His home stood alone, far from the others, hidden behind tall grass and silence. He had no job, no visible source of income, yet he lived. To some, he was a mystery. To others, a man best left alone. Many children growing up did not really know much about Pa Ngola. But the elderly in the village knew him very well. Pa Ngola had grown up like any other boy, barefoot, playful, chasing grasshoppers in the tall fields. Yet, at a tender age, something changed. He no longer did things the way other children did. His father was a farmer and his mom a teacher in the local school. He began to speak things, and they would happen, just as he said them. If he said it would rain, the clouds gathered before nightfall. If he said someone would fall ill, by morning that person would be coughing and weak. Even his parents feared him, what happened to their son? But no one could find answers. From then on, people started keeping their distance. Some whispered that he was chosen by the spirits, others said he had made a covenant with darkness. But one thing was certain, nothing he said ever fell to the ground. At the age of 20, Pa Ngola married a woman named Kakima, the most beautiful lady in the village. No one ever believed she could fall for him, yet somehow, she did. Against all odds, they became husband and wife and chose to live far from the rest of the village, deep within the quiet of the bush. A year later, she gave birth to a daughter, Maloko, a child said to have her mother's beauty and her father's piercing eyes. But joy did not last long. Pa Ngola died mysteriously 6 years later, without warning. No one ever knew how or why. Some said it was illness, others whispered of a curse. When she passed, Pa Ngola was left alone with their daughter Maloko raising her alone. From that day, the man who was once feared became even more withdrawn, more unpredictable, and far more terrifying. Maloko was only 18 now, still young, still innocent in many ways. But fate had taken its turn. The village hunter, Ndamba, had fallen deeply in love with her, and now, she was pregnant. When Maloko told him the news, Ndamba was devastated. His heart pounded like a drum in the still night. What have I done? He thought. What if her father finds out? Will he not end my life? Rumors spread faster than fire through dry grass. Even before Pa Ngola, Maloko's father, heard it himself, the whispers had already reached every corner of the village. Women gossiped by the stream, and men murmured at the palm wine bar. When the truth finally reached Pa Ngola's ears, his fury was like a storm. His voice thundered through their small hut as he demanded, "Who got you pregnant, Maloko?" Maloko trembled. Her lips quivered. She couldn't speak. She knew the kind of man her father was, feared, unpredictable, dangerous. If he ever found out that it was Ndamba, the hunter, he would kill him without hesitation. She fell to her knees, pleading with her father not to be angry. But Pa Ngola's patience was gone. After hours of tears and questions, the truth finally slipped from her trembling lips, Ndamba. The moment that name left her mouth, silence fell. Then Pa Ngola's face darkened. His fist clenched. The air around him felt heavy. Something terrible was about to happen. As Pa Ngola stepped out of the house, Maloko ran after him, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Papa," she cried. "I don't want my child to grow up without a father. Mama left me so early, and it has never been the same. Please, don't do anything to Ndamba, for the sake of my child." But Pa Ngola said nothing. His eyes burned like fire, his breath heavy with rage. Yet, as he walked into the open path leading to Ndamba's compound, his daughter's words began to echo in his heart. Slowly, his anger began to settle, like dust after a storm. Still, he kept walking. When Pa Ngola reached Ndamba's compound, the air grew still. The chickens stopped scratching the ground. The children ran into their mother's huts. Everyone knew he had come for no good reason. Then his voice broke the silence, deep and thunderous. "Ndamba! Come out here! How dare you!" At that moment, Ndamba was behind his hut, hiding among the bushes, a rope clutched tightly in his trembling hands. He had been contemplating taking his own life. But when Pa Ngola's voice echoed through the compound, his knees weakened. The rope fell to the ground. His mind raced, should I run? Should I face him? But running wasn't an option. Pa Ngola wasn't an ordinary man. If he said he would find you, he would. People had seen him appear and disappear in broad daylight. There was something about him that no one could explain. Gathering courage, Ndamba stepped out and walked slowly toward his compound. Pa Ngola stood there, tall and still, like a spirit out of time. "Ndamba," he said, his voice low but firm, "what did you do to my daughter?" Ndamba fell to his knees, trembling. "Please, Pa Ngola," he pleaded, his voice shaking. "I love Maloko. I never meant to bring shame upon your house. Please, let me make things right. Let me marry your daughter and give her the best life I can." Pa Ngola stared at him for a long, silent moment. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "Won't you invite me into your hut?" The words shocked Ndamba. Still, he nodded, forcing a weak smile, and led the feared man inside. Inside the dimly lit hut, Pa Ngola sat quietly for a moment. Then he spoke with calm authority. "Listen to me, Ndamba. I am letting you live, not because of you, but because of the child my daughter carries. But hear me well," he leaned forward, his eyes cold and piercing. "If anything ever goes wrong, if you ever bring tears to my daughter again, remember, you have me to contend with." Ndamba bowed his head, shaking. "Yes, Pa Ngola. I understand." And that was how Maloko was given into marriage to Ndamba. Ndamba became a careful man. He made sure to tread softly, for he knew the kind of man his father-in-law was. But luck was on his side. Maloko was a good girl. Gentle, respectful, and full of grace. Ndamba's parents and siblings loved her dearly. Soon, a small traditional ceremony was held, and Ndamba officially married Maloko. In their home, he treated her like a queen, giving her all that she needed, protecting her, providing for her. Maloko was surrounded by love, peace, and laughter. For the first time, her heart felt complete. Meanwhile, deep in the bushes, in his lonely compound, Pa Ngola lived alone. The silence around him was thick and heavy. He missed his daughter more than words could tell. But life had to continue. Slowly, painfully, he began to accept that Maloko was no longer there, that his once lively home had become a quiet shadow of what it used to be. For 18 years, no matter how strong he appeared, Pa Ngola knew the truth. His daughter had always been his source of strength. No one truly knew what had happened to his wife. Many villagers whispered, pointing fingers at him. Some said he had used her for his dark powers. Others said it was punishment from the gods. But only Pa Ngola knew the truth. He had loved his wife deeply, with everything in him. That evening, memories of her came rushing back. He sat beside the small fire, staring into the flickering flames as his mind drifted to that fateful night, the night everything changed. It was long ago. Mama Maloko had been sitting by the fire, humming softly as she stirred the pot. Pa Ngola was in his sacred room, deep in the spirit realm, where he often traveled. That night, the fight was fierce, unlike any he had faced before. His opponent in the spiritual world was strong, far stronger than he expected. In that battle, the spirit demanded a sacrifice from his household. Pa Ngola refused. He fought with all his strength, shouting the names of the ancestors, calling on the wind and fire to help him. But as he struggled in the unseen world, something strange happened in the physical one. Mama Maloko suddenly stood up, adding wood to the fire. A tiny flame leapt, small, harmless, or so it seemed. But then, it spread. Before anyone could understand what was happening, the fire caught her wrapper. She screamed, and by the time help came, it was too late. When Pa Ngola returned from the spirit realm, exhausted and trembling, all he found was silence and ashes. Since that day, guilt had lived in his heart. Maybe that battle was one he was never meant to fight. Maybe the realm had taken too much from him. But one thing was sure, from that moment on, he vowed to protect his daughter with every breath he had left. A month later, Maloko gave birth to a son, a healthy, beautiful boy. From the moment he cried his first cry, love filled the air. He became the heart of the home, the most beloved of all. For the first time in years, Pa Ngola smiled from deep within. At last, he had a grandchild, his own blood, his hope for tomorrow. When the little boy was just 3 months old, one hot afternoon, Pa Ngola suddenly appeared at his daughter's house. Maloko! Maloko, he shouted, breathless and trembling. Please, you must come to my house now, with your child. Tell your husband it's urgent. You stay with me until further notice. He gave no explanation. His urgency filled the air with tension, leaving everyone confused. Maloko's in-laws whispered among themselves, trying to make sense of it. Later that evening, when Ndamba returned from hunting, he found the hut empty. His wife and son were gone. Alarmed, he rushed around the compound, asking questions, until someone told him that Pa Ngola had come and taken them away. Without hesitation, Ndamba stormed to his father-in-law's home, demanding answers. But Pa Ngola's reply was brief, heavy, and strange: they need my protection, right away. What exactly is the problem? What are you trying to protect them from? Ndamba demanded, his voice trembling with anger and fear. But Pa Ngola said nothing more. His silence was heavy, the kind that could start a war. Realizing how tense things had become, Ndamba took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He lowered his voice, his eyes softening. But Papa, he said quietly, what really happened? Please, maybe I'll find peace if you just explain it to me. Pa Ngola looked away, his face shadowed by something deeper than words. The air grew still, as though the world itself was listening. Pa Ngola felt a weight in his heart, a burden no one else could understand. Even if he tried to explain, who would believe him? He spoke calmly, his voice low but firm. My son, Ndamba, he said, please return home. Your wife and child will stay with me for now. I promise, they will return to you soon. Reluctantly, Ndamba agreed. He looked at his wife and son one last time, spoke a few quiet words to Maloko, and then turned back toward his own compound. His steps were heavy. His heart, heavier still. By the time he arrived home, the news had already spread across the village like wildfire. People whispered at the wells, in the markets, and under the shade of mango trees. And what went wrong, they asked. Maybe this is one of Ndamba's schemes again. Why would Pa Ngola suddenly take back his married daughter? Is he trying to protect her from the same fate as her mother? Rumors thickened the air, but Pa Ngola cared little for what people said. He had seen things others could not see. Meanwhile, Ndamba struggled in silence. He felt humiliated and broken. His peers mocked him openly. Did you truly marry that girl? Some sneered, or was she just lent to you for free? How can your father-in-law walk into your house and take your wife and child without a word? Each word pierced him like a blade. And while the village laughed and whispered, Maloko sat quietly in her father's hut, her eyes heavy with tears. She missed her husband deeply. 2 weeks later, the rumors had begun to fade, but Ndamba's shame had not. Every corner he passed, whispers followed him. Some laughed openly, others threw mocking words that stung like thorns. Day after day, Maloko watched her father with growing worry. He was shrinking, not just in body, but in spirit. The cheerful man who used to tease and play with his daughter had turned into a quiet, distant shadow of himself. One evening, unable to bear it anymore, Maloko sat beside him and asked softly, "Papa, what is it that troubles you so deeply?" Pa Ngola looked into the fire for a long time before answering. His voice was low, tired. "It's too heavy to speak of, my child. You won't understand." He said nothing more. Weeks turned into months. For 3 long months, silence lived between them. Then, one evening, as the orange glow of the fire lit the compound, Maloko sat beside the flames with her husband, who had come to visit her. Suddenly, a piercing cry echoed from Pa Ngola's secret room. They froze. Everyone in the village knew of that room, no one was ever allowed to enter it. Even Pa Ngola's daughter dared not step close. But tonight, something was wrong. The cry came again, sharp and trembling. Maloko and Ndamba ran to the door, hearts pounding. "Should we open it?" Ndamba whispered, fear in her eyes. "He warned us never to," Maloko said, hesitating. But the sound from inside grew louder, like someone in agony. After a moment of trembling indecision, Ndamba rammed his shoulder against the wooden door. It burst open with a crack. What they saw inside turned their blood to ice. Pa Ngola was lying on the floor, half of his body, from the waist down, was that of a snake, thick scales coiled around themselves, glistening under the dim light. The upper part remained Pa Ngola, the man they knew, or thought they knew. The room was nothing like they expected. Skulls lined the shelves, dried herbs hung from the rafters, strange symbols marked the clay walls. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a shrine. A forbidden place. A place of power. Maloko's heart slammed against her ribs. Was this who her father truly was? 1,000 questions crashed through her mind, each more terrifying than the last, but her tongue was frozen. She could not speak. Pa Ngola writhed in pain, shouting, "Don't touch me. If you touch me now, I will remain like this forever." What were they supposed to do? Watch him suffer? Run? Scream? Still trembling, they backed away. "Go out," he yelled. "I will handle it." Maloko saw agony twisting through her father's face. She wanted to help, but she couldn't. She and Ndamba stumbled out of the shrine-like room, almost choking on their own breaths. Their hands shook. They could barely look at each other. What had they just witnessed? Outside, they waited and waited until finally Pa Ngola's voice came weakly from inside. "Maloko, please come help me sit up." She rushed inside, Ndamba right behind her. What they saw made her heart stop again, this time not in fear, but in confusion. Pa Ngola was back to his full, normal human form. His legs were legs again. His waist was wrapped in a red cloth, sweat dripping down his face. He didn't look powerful now. He looked broken. Worn out. Human. Maloko said nothing. This was not the moment for questions. She helped her father sit up, helped him to his room, step by painful step, for he could barely walk. Before they left him, Pa Ngola whispered, "Please, don't tell anyone. Either of you. I will explain everything when I am stronger." That evening, Ndamba left Pa Ngola's house with fear clinging to him like a shadow. What he saw was too heavy to speak of. Too dangerous to repeat. At sunrise, Ndamba could not rest. He returned to check on his father-in-law and wife. He walked quietly to Pa Ngola's door, knocked, and slowly pushed it open. Pa Ngola lay on the bed, still asleep. Ndamba froze. This was not normal. Pa Ngola was always awake before dawn, always the first to rise. But now, it was 10 a.m., and he had not stirred. Something was wrong. Pa Ngola finally woke up late in the afternoon. This was nothing like him. Never in his life had he slept beyond sunrise, let alone deep into the day. When he tried to get up, his body refused him. Pain held him down like chains. He couldn't even place his feet on the floor. Weakly, he called out, "Maloko, please come." Maloko rushed in. She helped him sit up, her hands trembling as she supported his frail body. He asked her to prepare food. She returned with a simple meal, and Pa Ngola ate slowly, each swallow seeming to drain him instead of strengthen him. When he was done, Maloko finally asked the question burning in her heart. "Papa, what happened? What did we see that day? Why did you make me leave my husband's house? Why were you in that unspeakable state? What is going on?" Pa Ngola sighed, eyes full of pain. "Maloko, my daughter. I will explain. But not today. I do not have the strength." Days passed. Pa Ngola grew thinner, weaker, and paler. His once strong frame looked like it was collapsing in on itself. Each morning he looked worse than the last. It was as if something unseen was draining the life out of him. After one long, torturous week, Pa Ngola realized the bitter truth. He could not face this alone. He would not make it unless he opened up. So he called Maloko and Ndamba one quiet evening. They sat at his bedside, the oil lamp flickering shadows across the walls. Pa Ngola reached for their hands, tears pooling in his eyes. "Maloko, my daughter. Ndamba, my son. I am sorry. I have put you through so much pain. Please forgive me." He took a deep breath. "When I was a child, my uncle Ponkem introduced me to his friends. He gave me some kola nuts to chew. I thought it was nothing. But after chewing it, I found myself in a meeting, inside a dream yet not a dream. My uncle was there. His friends were there. They ate and drank. But the meat and the wine were like nothing from this world." Maloko's heart tightened. She knew the stories people whispered about her father. She never believed they were true. Pa Ngola continued, "Little by little, they welcomed me into their gatherings. Before my uncle died, he told me I would take his place. That meeting, that realm, is something I do not wish to describe." His voice broke. "Your mother was a price I had to pay to enter deeper into that dimension." Maloko gasped. Tears filled her eyes. "Recently, they demanded another price, you, Maloko. That is why I called you home. I wanted to protect you. But those beings, they are stronger than me." He wiped his eyes, ashamed. "The battle grew fierce. I was fighting to keep them from taking you. And when they overpowered me, that is the form you saw me in." He turned to Ndamba. "Thank you for loving my daughter. I do not know if I will live another day. Take care of her. Take care of my grandchild." Maloko cried uncontrollably. She had always heard people say her father was a mysterious man, one with extraordinary powers. but she never imagined it went this far. This deep. This dark. Tears running down her cheeks, she whispered. Papa, you are all I have left. I won't let you go. Tell me more. Maybe I can help you. As he explained everything, Maloko remembered the sermon from their local church, nothing is above God. When troubles come, run to him. She wiped her face and said, Papa, let me bring the pastor. I believe nothing is stronger than God. She stood, ready to go, but Ndamba stopped her gently. My wife, let me go. You stay with Papa. Ndamba returned with the pastor after 2 hours. Pa Ngola repeated his confession, this time trembling as he spoke. The pastor listened quietly, then placed his hand on Pa Ngola's shoulder. He prayed, fervently, deeply, calling for mercy, deliverance, and freedom. Something shifted in the room. The air felt lighter. Pa Ngola felt warmth flood through his body. That night, he surrendered fully to Christ. The next morning, he apologized to everyone he had wronged. And slowly, day by day, Pa Ngola regained his strength. He began attending church. He prayed with sincerity. He transformed into a man who carried peace instead of fear. He thought he was going to die. But grace found him. God came through for him.